working here with you on this campaign are the Asian Pacific Environmental Network, the Communities for Better Environment, Physicians for Social Responsibility, and the Center for Race, Poverty, and the Environment. And we're here to represent communities who are living next to, unfortunately, refineries to this day, or oil wells that are being impacted directly by these industries. One of the things that we are here to say is that we're here to actually support a campaign. Specifically, we want to represent individuals who are breathing in toxic air and struggle with unsafe water, and we stand united in support of the Polluters Pays bill. Far too long, our families have borne the cost of pollution while oil and gas companies walk away with profits. This bill is about justice, accountability, and finally, putting the health of our communities first. And now I'm going to actually do the translation in Spanish. So, buenos días y gracias por venir aquí. Mi nombre es Diana Vázquez Ballesteros y yo soy la co-directora ejecutiva de la Alianza de Justicia Estatal de California, una coalición estatal que representa a 10 organizaciones por todo el estado, organizaciones que ahorita estamos representando y son el Asian Environmental Network, Asian Pacific Environmental Network, Center Race, Poverty, and Environment, Communities for Better Environment, and Physicians for Social Responsibility. Y hoy, en nombre de las comunidades de justicia ambiental de California, y especialmente aquellas que viven juntos a pozos petroleros, respiran aire tóxico y enfrentan dificultades para accesar agua segura, nos presentamos aquí unidos a apoyar una ley que se llama Que paguen los contaminadores. Durante demasiado tiempo, nuestras familias han cargado con el costo de la contaminación, mientras las empresas petroleras se llevan las ganancias. Este proyecto de la ley se trata de justicia, de renunciar de cuentas y finalmente de poner la salud de nuestras comunidades al primero. Y por eso estamos aquí apoyando esta ley y voy a introducir a diferentes personas que van a hablar sobre sus experiencias. Okay. So, the first speaker, now going into English, the first speaker is going to be Assemblymember Dawn Addis, who's going to be speaking on behalf of her bill.
Well, good morning and welcome. I am incredibly honored to be here with my colleague, Senator Menjivar, who's really been steadfast in this fight. She started this fight last year. We're continuing it together this year, and I couldn't be more proud than to get to work with somebody like her, with her strength, with her decorum, and with her commitment to the people of the great state of California. I'm also very excited to be here with Jane Fonda, who you all know and love, who is an icon as well as a leader in climate action and, frankly, an example for all of us of what it looks like to lead this fight with grace and decorum. And, of course, we have incredible partners here today who aren't just hoping for a better future, but are also taking action to manifest that future. And I want to start with a look back to last year and last session and what brought me here today. Because when I decided to take on big oil last year, I did that on the heels of historic atmospheric rivers across the Central Coast in January 2023. And frankly, those storms almost brought the Central Coast to its knees. We went out and talked to residents and homeowners, people who were displaced, who had their homes destroyed or filled with mud, and lost millions and millions of dollars in infrastructure and other kinds of damages. And what I realized is that the climate crisis isn't just an environmental crisis, it's not just an existential crisis, but it's the defining financial crisis of our lifetimes. And so we worked incredibly hard last year. Everyone in this room worked incredibly hard. We passed 3233 to give local communities the right to make their own choices around oil and gas. We did that in the last 13 minutes of session. It was exhilarating and exhausting, and we were proud, but we left session knowing the work isn't done. What we didn't know is almost 2 years to the day after those winter storms, we would have the most devastating, most expensive wildfires in history in the LA area, with over 10,000 people, over 13,000 people losing their homes in those fires. And so my heart broke in that moment this year for the loss of life and property, and the fact that normal people, your moms and dads and grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins and people that we've heard from across California, would again face the financial crisis of the climate crisis. And what that looks like in very real terms is people who are paying more to cool their homes during extreme heat. They're paying because they have to evacuate and rebuild, and they can't find hotel rooms, and they frankly don't have the money to rebuild after these mega fires and floods. They're paying for medical care because of pollution-related health issues. But it's also our tax dollars that are paying for recovery, as opposed to the projects that we need to pay for to ensure that we continue to transition. And, you know, recently there was a podcast on, I'm sure you've all listened to the governor's podcast, but I'll reference it, but his podcast was on the fact that the climate crisis is a financial crisis, and that the mortgage sector is on the verge of collapse because of the climate crisis, that if people cannot get homeowners insurance, banks are not going to lend, and people will not be able to sell their homes, which is going to throw us into a deeper mortgage and financial crisis than ever. And I'll just say what we all know is that the oil industry caused this. They've known they were causing it for decades. They hid this for decades, and then they pushed the cost onto us for decades. And so our communities, who for generations have been overpowered by mega oil companies who are getting mega profits, just simply cannot bear the cost anymore. It's backbreaking these costs. And simply put, it's sick and it's wrong. And so this is why I'm honored to partner with the senator and with the sponsors of this bill to make the change that we truly need. AB 1243 and SB 684 parallel bills are equitable policies that ensure polluters contribute alongside taxpayers to cover the costs of climate damages. And it's based on a very, very simple principle, which is that if you cause harm, you should be part of the solution so that each and every one of us can prosper. Specifically, the bills will direct the Cal EPA to do three things: to identify fossil fuel companies responsible for at least 1 billion metric tons of global greenhouse gas emissions between 1990 and 2024, which for comparison is about 64 coal-fired power plants operating for 1 year. It also tasks the EPA, the Cal EPA, with conducting a climate cost study to quantify the total damages to California through 2045 that have been caused by past fossil fuel emissions, and assess fees on the largest fuel polluters that is proportional to their emissions, with choice in the payment structure. They can pay at once or over 20 years. So we have provided them some flexibility. And I want to talk about how the funds will be used, because this is near and dear to my family, certainly. Many of these funds can be used for renewable energy acceleration, building decarbonization, school resilience to extreme weather and climate disasters, affordable infill housing, and home hardening. And I just want to take a point of personal privilege and say that, you know, many of us, when we go home and we lay down to go to sleep at night and we put our head on our pillow, we hope that we're going to fall asleep without worry. But what happens for many of us is that we lay there awake wondering, Is my house going to catch on fire? Do I have enough insurance? How will I afford this if something happens? And can I pay for home hardening? It's very expensive. So all of these things are on regular Californians' minds every day. I will also say folks are worried about work. They want to know that they're going to have the jobs of the future and that those jobs are going to be able to pay for living wage jobs. And that is part of what this money would do, would create the projects that provide living wage jobs in the construction sector so that we can transition in a just way. Funds are also available for local and tribal governments and public agencies and essential workers who are responding to climate disasters. And the bill prioritizes labor and job standards, and 40% of the funds, importantly, go to the communities most impacted by fossil fuel pollution. So AB 1243 is an incredibly important bill that will help us move into the future that we want, one where taxpayers are protected, building and construction jobs are created, and the world's mega polluters who are mega profiters can rectify their past destruction by helping to fund the solution that everyday people in this room and beyond can get the help that we need. So with that, I want to say thank you and turn this over to Senator Caroline Menjivar.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Woolsey Fire, the Paris Fire, Thomas Fire, Eden Fire, Palisades Fire. How many more catastrophic incidents does California need to experience to wake up and say that the status quo is no longer working? In the past 6 years, California, within the budget process, has allocated $52.3 billion of hard-earning taxpayer money to offset, to rebuild, to respond to these catastrophic incidents that we should no longer say are climate-driven, but exasperated by human decisions. And what is happening is that we are being pitted with working class communities and saying that we are trying to put people out of jobs. But what is actually happening is that the Chevrons, the Exxons of the world are pocketing historic level of profits and bringing towards the capital working class community and say that we need to protect them. And we are protecting them. They live within the communities that these bills are looking to protect at the highest levels. You heard 40% of what we're looking to get out of this fund is going to go into the very communities where these workers live. If WISPA and everybody associated with them really looked inside, they would see that they have enough money, more than enough money, to respond to this fund. In fact, they're one of the highest paying investments in lobbying to kill every single time of climate-driven bill that California sees here in the past couple of years. Close to $40 billion of investments just for lobbying to kill these kind of bills. That's money that could have gone back into taxpayers' pockets. Because what we see every single time after a catastrophic incident is utilities, insurance, asking the respective bodies to increase their rates to offset what's happening. That is a double tax on our Californians. So not only do we have to pay within the budget of California, we also have to pay to offset the costs for utility companies, for insurance companies, then have to pay, so it's a triple tax, to rebuild our homes that California is not currently helping them rebuild. So enough is enough. We're not asking to change the entire system. We're asking for a little piece of a fair share to come in and help us rebuild what you broke. You tell me any other example that exists in California where you don't have to pay something that you broke. If you're a part of that, you need to be at the table, because right now it's just taxpayers and it's just California footing the bill of one of the highest amount of investments into offsetting what human decisions have caused and exacerbated and related to climate change. And we're not the first. California claims to be leading in environmental justice, and no disrespect, yes, we are in a lot of spaces, but Vermont and New York went first. And when I first introduced the bill, no other state had a bill just like this. But since then, in the past 365 days, we've had 2 states say, all right, California, watch this. And I want to make sure that we respond and say, okay, our move, we're going to match you. And I know we can do this. We need the investment. We're talking about affordability across every conversation in California. This is an affordability bill. This will help offset the costs. And to the people who are concerned about increasing prices at the gas pump, this bill does not touch every single player. We're talking about the top 1% that emits this kind of level. So if not everyone is being looked at in this bill, competition, fair competition laws are not going to allow for everybody to increase prices because they're going to want to be competitive. We are having conversations, have an open door with everyone to say we need a solution here because what is working is what is currently the status quo is not working. I can't have another fire in an urban area. This is not a rural area. This is not a coastal issue. Sorry, this is not a urban issue. This is a Californian issue that is impacting Californians from Eureka to San Diego. And we've come together with a diverse coalition that you see behind us to say we are united in this fight. We are looking to ensure that we're uplifting communities like the communities I represent. EJ issues are front and center in my district. I'm very passionate about ensuring that everybody has good quality air to breathe. Everyone has the ability to play outside because what's happening right now is we're killing our country. We're killing our planet. We're killing our world. And we need to step up as leaders that we claim to be and say that we need to pass SB 684 and AB 1243. I don't have to go into what the bills do. You've heard it from my colleague, Assemblymember. We need our colleagues to step in and say, we need a change. We cannot continue to be the body that just sits back and just lets these things go by and write a paycheck. That's not going to solve anything. I'm so proud now to turn over to an individual that has been working on this even before I was born. An individual that when I grow up, I want to be like that, who does not stop fighting and being on the front lines regardless of her stature, regardless of how many films and movies she's filming. She takes the time to say these are real people issues, and I want to lend my voice and my name to it. So please welcome Academy Award winner, actor, and activist Jane Fonda.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. You know, everybody in the world, I mean, everybody is paying the costs for the climate crisis. People are losing homes to once-in-a-lifetime fires. We're losing loved ones to illnesses made worse by fossil fuel air pollution. We're losing our favorite places to floods, species habitat decimation, not to mention the enormous and growing financial costs of cleaning up these messes and figuring out how to rebuild in this new reality. The only ones who are not paying are the polluters who caused these problems. The bill finally says the largest corporations who has profited from causing climate pollution need to pay their fair share to deal with the consequences. I want to give my deep thanks to Senator Menjivar and Assemblymember Addis for championing this visionary piece of climate policy. I think it's probably the most, if not one of the most important pieces of climate legislation today in the world. We have to get this passed. Now more than ever, we in California need to show that we remain on the cutting edge of thinking and leadership to solve this crisis. And a major piece of solving this crisis is paying for it, and not with more taxpayers' money. Big oil has made trillions of dollars in profits. They don't need any more free passes. We're already paying them, we taxpayers, $20 billion every year in subsidies. And they don't like socialism. The billions of dollars of revenue that this bill will raise, you know, it's raised $75 billion in New York, so it can raise well over $100 billion in California. And boy, will that help us with our budget deficits. The revenue from this bill will make sure that more everyday people are supported when their homes burn down, when the power goes out, and when they need public transit to get to work. It will help make sure that all Californians get to be part of the renewable energy revolution. that more good family-sustaining jobs are created, and that our state can accelerate the transition that will make our lives safer, healthier, and less expensive. We have growing support for this bill with labor, community, environmental, and faith leaders and union leaders. California is uniting together here to show that we can make polluters pay their fair share to clean up the mess that they made. This is a practical solution, which is something that's hard to find when you're tackling an impossible crisis, as we are. It's a solution that California, alongside states like New York and Vermont, can model at a time when so many people in other states are looking to California to lead. Again, thank you to Senator Menjivar and Assemblymember Addis and all the co-authors for leading on California's Climate Superfund bill. And thank you to the hundreds of organizations and thousands of people that are working so hard to support it. Believe me, I know it's not easy to go up against big oil, but we have to. And when we stand together and fight, we win. You know, last year I worked with the Campaign for a Safe and Healthy California to defeat big oil's referendum. They were trying to overturn Governor Newsom's Senate Bill 1137, which did eventually create a setback of 3,200 feet, keeping new oil wells out of communities. It was a David and Goliath battle. We knew they were prepared to spend $200 million. We spent $5 million and we won. It was the many over the money, and we will win on this bill. Passing the Climate Superfund is the #1 thing we need to do right now to protect Californians from the climate crisis. By standing side by side to pass this bill, we are showing big oil again that we are not afraid, that we are not daunted, and California is moving forward with a climate solution. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator Menjivar and Assemblymember Addis, and also for the amazing Jane Fonda for those words. And we're going to go into our next speaker, and her name is Jessica Cowlakes, who is here to speak a little bit about her experience living in an impacted community. So, Jessica.
Hi, my name is Jessica Cowlakes, and I'm a displaced resident of the neighborhood of South Crest in San Diego. In January 2024, it was my son Chago's 8th birthday, and our home flooded. That morning, we saw cars getting trapped in rising water. By 10 a.m., our house was filled with 6 feet of toxic floodwater. In a matter of hours, everything we owned was gone. My whole community was devastated, including Chago. He was only 8 and he told me, "I'm glad I didn't get everything I wanted for Christmas because it would have been lost with the rest of my presents in the flood." He misses his best friends being next door, and years of happy memories trigger waves of grief and sadness. And now when it rains hard, he gets scared. He wonders if it's going to happen again, and no child should have to live with that fear. I thought we would have more time before a climate crisis would destroy our lives. But the truth is, what had happened to us is happening to more and more families. It didn't need to be so destructive, though. Our neighborhood, mostly made up of immigrant and working class families, had been ignored in our pleas to have the flood channels behind our home cleared out. When disaster struck, first responders were completely overwhelmed with calls, and the city was slow to respond. Many of our neighbors had to rescue one another, and we were on our own. We're still picking up the pieces. Taxpayers like us shouldn't be the only ones responsible for paying for climate disaster repair, maintaining infrastructure, for rebuilding entire communities. The corporations contributing to climate change must step up too to help repair the damage and to invest in ensuring this doesn't happen again and again. Communities like mine shouldn't be the only ones to bear the cost of disasters we didn't cause. We just can't keep doing this alone. We can't afford it. We deserve safe, healthy neighborhoods. We deserve protection, and we deserve justice. The Climate Superfund bill will help us achieve that, and I urge you to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. And then we have our following speaker who's going to be providing the perspective of a medical individual, and her name is Dr. Linda Rudolph, and she's a senior advisor on climate and health on the Public Health Institute. So, Dr. Rudolph.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Menjivar and Assemblymember Addis, for this important bill. Physicians, nurses, and health workers across California are now seeing the health harms of climate change. We're seeing more heart attacks, more asthma attacks, and more preterm births related to wildfire smoke and extreme heat. These effects have a huge health burden, but also a huge cost burden. UCLA estimated 50,000 early deaths from wildfire smoke in California over 10 years, with an associated economic impact of over $400 billion. Just 7 extreme heat events caused 450 deaths, 10,000 hospitalizations, and 5,000 hospitalizations and 10,000 ER visits, with costs over $4.8 billion. We haven't begun to calculate the costs of more climate-related illness from ticks and mosquitoes, from food and waterborne illness, from worsening air pollution, from floods, or from the widespread mental health impacts of climate change, especially in our youth. Our local and state health budgets are under enormous pressure, and Washington is moving rapidly to cut Medicaid and public health funding. How will we pay to protect human health in the era of climate change? Who will pay for the rising health costs of climate change? Like the tobacco industry, the fossil fuel industry knew about the impacts of its products, but they chose to lie and to deceive the public instead of taking positive action. They lied, and people are dying. The fossil fuel companies, not patients and not taxpayers, must be held accountable for the rising health costs of deadly fossil fuel pollution. That's why the California Nurses Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics California, the American Lung Association, Physicians for Social Responsibility, and many, many health professionals around the state proudly support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rudolph. And then we come to our last speaker, which is Kate Ugandine, Head of Advocacy, 7th Generation, and she's here to speak on her perspective. So, thank you.
Hello, my name is Kate Ogden, and I'm the Head of Advocacy at 7th Generation. Thank you to Assemblymember Addis and Senator Menjivar for their leadership. And thank you to today's speakers, as well as to the many people from across California standing up for the communities bearing the brunt of escalating climate disasters. I'm here today representing not only 7th Generation, a sustainable home care company founded over 30 years ago, but as a representative of California Businesses for Climate Justice. This group of over 40 businesses and business associations includes Dr. Bronner's, Thrive Market, Patagonia, Amy's Kitchen, as well as B-Labs US and Canada, and the American Sustainable Business Network. We're a community of values-led businesses who believe that businesses should be held accountable for the impact we have on people and the planet. And we hold that principle at the core of our business models. And as business leaders, we see the climate crisis and the horrifying losses of life, of property, as well as from a business perspective, the loss of productivity and profit that can result from climate disasters as a direct result of what happens when an industry, in this case, those responsible for the vast majority of climate pollution, are not held accountable for their impact. For better or worse, and historically for worse, the business community has had an outsized influence over policy. And for the biggest climate polluters, that influence has led to decades of climate denial and delay. That denial and delay has brought us to this moment where raging wildfires, catastrophic rain, flooding, heat, and air quality events are becoming annual occurrences, wreaking havoc on the people, communities, and businesses of California. For too long, the biggest polluters have told the lie that we can have just climate policy or a strong economy. The businesses I represent know that that's not true. They know that climate disasters are also business disasters. They're broken supply chains, physical locations damaged or destroyed, employees unable to work because they are displaced, can't get to work, or must care for a child who can't go to school. I'm here today to make clear that the state's biggest polluters do not speak for the entire California business community. I'm here today because I believe that businesses should be accountable for their impact. I'm here today because it breaks my heart to see our community suffer in the face of a crisis that was foreseen and avoidable. And I'm here today to call on legislators to take bold action to protect our communities and make polluters pay. Thank you.
Yeah, and with that, we conclude with our speakers. I just want to take a moment to definitely say thank you to Assemblymember Addis and Senator Menjivar and everybody here who has been supporting this bill. I know in bills, it's going to be an effort that we're going to be seeing it through this year, and if not, we'll be here next year for sure. So thank you for that, and with that, we will conclude and we can take a picture too. So.